Well, welcome back to Finance Uncut. On today's episode, a Buffett backs gold and silver money. I did a video last year explaining inflation from the original definition which the Austrian economists use, because everywhere on FinTwit, macro investors, economists, they talk about inflation. I hear them talk about inflation. It really frustrates me because they've all got a different definition of inflation. You know, it's velocity here for one. It's wage growth over here that causes inflation. It's supply issues over here, and they're all different. They're all convoluting what inflation is, or inflation is just price rises. But that's not what inflation is. And so I did this video called Inflation Explained, and it's the original definition of inflation explained by Ludwig von Mises, the great Austrian economist. So this is the video that I did, and it's based on Ludwig von Mises' book, Economic Policy Thoughts for Today and Tomorrow. So I'll put a link in the description below. So if you want to understand more and get the real definition of what inflation is, so that you can, you know, the great thing about Austrian economics, and the reason why I was attracted to it, was because they've predicted every boom and bust for over 100 years. You know, and as an investor, I want to get things right. I want to be the best investor that I can be. So I started searching all these different economic theories to try to work out how the world works, how the economy really works. And unfortunately, well, fortunately, unfortunately, whatever, I found that Austrian economics explained how the real economy worked and how they could predict these booms and busts. And so, you know, an important thing is to get the right definition of inflation. If you're not using the right definition of inflation, then, you know, it's like, you know, any type of model. If you're putting the wrong data in, well, you're going to get the wrong data out, right? You're going to get the wrong answer out. So anyway, I'll put a link in the description below if you want to learn more about what the true definition of inflation is. I also did a follow-up video from explaining what inflation is using the Austrian definition to do in this video the cure for inflation. I'll also put a link in the description below. And I based it off Henry Hazlitt's book, What You Should Know About Inflation. So once again, if you want to learn more about the true economics and the macro, this whole debate on inflation, understanding what real inflation is and what the cure is for it, and whether governments and central banks are going to cure inflation or make things worse, you can be better prepared from a macro point of view to you know, to manage your portfolio accordingly.
This question from Chris Freed from Philadelphia, and whoever wants to take this on stage. From raw material purchases by Berkshire subsidiaries, are you seeing signs of inflation beginning to increase?
Let me answer that. Greg can give more. We're seeing very substantial inflation. It's very interesting. I mean, we're raising prices. People are raising prices to us, and it's being accepted. I mean, it's not. If we get, well, you know, take home building. I mean, you know, the cost of, we've got 9 home builders, and in addition to our manufactured housing thing, and then operation, which is the largest in the country. So we really do a lot of housing. The costs are just up. Steel costs, you know, just every day they're going up, and there hasn't yet been, because the wage stuff follows. I mean, if the UAW writes a 3-year contract, we got a 3-year contract. But if you're buying steel at General Motors or someplace, you're paying more every day. So it's an economy really, it's red hot. I mean, and we weren't expecting it. I mean, all our companies, when they thought when they were allowed to go back to work, you know, at or various operations. We closed the furniture stores. I mentioned, they were closed for 6 weeks or so on average, and they didn't know what was going to happen when they open. And they can't stop people from buying things, and we can't deliver them. And they say, well, that's okay because nobody else can deliver them either, and we'll wait for 3 months or something of the sort. But the backlog grows, and then we thought it would end when the $600 payments ended, and I think around August of last year. It just kept going, and it keeps going, and it keeps going, and it keeps going. And I get the figures every week. I call, or Bumpkin calls me, and we go over day by day what happened at 3 different stores in Chicago and Kansas City and Dallas, and it just won't stop. People have money in their pocket, and they pay the higher prices, and when carpet prices go up in a month or two, we announced a price increase for April. For our costs are going up. Supply chains all screwed up, for all kinds of people. But it's almost a buying frenzy, except certain areas you can't buy it. You really can't buy international air travel, and so the money is being diverted from a piece of the economy into the rest, and everybody's got more cash in their pocket except for. Meanwhile, it's a terrible situation for a percentage of the people. This suit, I haven't worn a suit, for a year practically, and that means that the dry cleaner nearest just went out of business. I mean, and nobody's bringing in suits to get dry cleaned, and nobody's bringing in white shirts to get the place where my wife goes. The small business person, if you didn't have takeout and delivery services for restaurants, you got killed. On the other hand, if you've got takeout facilities, you've done, same source sales of Dairy Queen are up a whole lot, and they adapted them. But it is not a price sensitive economy right now in the least, and I don't know exactly how when it shows up in different price indices, but there's more inflation going on than quite a bit more inflation going on than people would have anticipated just 6 months ago or thereabouts.
Yeah, and there's one very intelligent man who thinks it's dangerous. And that's just the start.
Now, when Charlie Munger said one very intelligent man says that it's dangerous and that it's just the beginning, was he referring to Michael Burry, who's no longer on Twitter because he created a storm and the SEC came to visit him because he was warning of a Weimar hyperinflation coming? Is that who Charlie Munger was talking about? Now, you can't tell me there's no inflation around at the moment, whether it's corn, soybeans, any sort of food. Soft commodities are skyrocketing. Hard commodities are skyrocketing. Lumber. I mean, there's now memes going around with pictures of people with timber in the back of their trucks or trailers, or people looking at timber saying, "Oh, look, just passed a billionaire down the highway," or "Look, here's a billionaire investor counting his portfolio." It's now starting to become a joke. Yet central banks are saying, "Oh, no inflation," or "Oh, look, it's just going to be transitory." Is it going to be transitory? No, I don't think so. Copper is now hit $10,000 a ton. We're seeing the cost of house prices, new builds, skyrocket. This all has a flow-on effect. We know that also China, supply chains are broken, but China have increased their costs. Shipping has skyrocketed. Or what about shrinkflation, where we're paying the same price? So it's like, oh, no inflation. However, that Snickers is now smaller. The packets of whatever we buy at the shops, food is smaller. Shrinkflation. It's a way they can hide inflation so that the masses go, oh, nothing to see here. Even though I feel poorer, I can't work out why I'm poorer. no inflation here. Remember what the true definition of inflation is. M1 money stock. It's now been discontinued. This is what, which Jason Burak from Wall Street from Main Street talks about stagflate tax lie. Is that what we're seeing? Well, one thing we are going to see is much higher taxes. Even though the MMT say we don't need to worry about paying back debt, so really we shouldn't worry about taxes. Increasing taxes is just a lever to keep inflation in check, like what interest rates were supposed to be. You move interest rates around to keep inflation or deflation in check, and that's what they think taxation is. However, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole in this video, but it is so stupid to think that just increasing people's taxes will slow inflation. Anyway, I should do a video on it because it's so stupid. It is so different to interest rates, so different. Anyway, I'm not going to go there. But this is stagflate tax lie. Stagflate tax lie. That's where the government, central bankers are at the moment. Now back to Michael Burry. This was his tweet back on the 22nd of February. People say I didn't warn last time. I did, but no one listened. So I warned this time, and still no one listens. But I will have proof I warned. And everyone saved his tweets. So I've saved his tweets, even though he's now deleted them and he's off Twitter. He was warning of hyperinflation. And it wasn't just him. I got involved in a conversation, so that's me, Siddhaveni, which is Fijian for Stephen. Professor Richard Werner, I got into a conversation with him, and then his reply to me was, so the deflationists want to compare us to Japan, that we're doing this Japanification. That we're going to have deflation or disinflation. And I asked Professor Werner to explain that why we're not, why we won't end up like Japan. And he said Japan's out, Germany is in. 2021 is 1921, hyperinflation in 2 years. So you can see when we look or compare Germany between 1989 and 1923, they didn't get the hyperinflation straight away. In fact, their stock market went up, and if you read the book The Dying of Money and others, The Death of Money, you'll see that they actually had this prosperous time. I understand why Michael Burry and Professor Richard Werner are using these comparisons to today, because the behavior is very similar. But you can see there, 1921 on this chart, that the mark, when measured against the dollar, the US dollar, it really didn't go into hyperinflation until another couple of years later. And that's where Professor Richard Werner is getting his comparison. And if we have a look at the mark valued in gold, you can kind of see the same thing. So you can see that that the mark definitely devalued a lot more in gold from 1989 to the beginning of 1923. But then ultimately, when that hyperinflation kicked in, the paper mark, just lost so much value when measured against real money. Gold rather than another fiat currency money, even though we were on a type of a gold standard back then. So anyway, there we have it. This article, written in 1948, not by Warren Buffett, but his father, Howard Buffett, who was a US congressman in Nebraska, wrote this piece, which I'll put a link in the description below, called Human Freedom Rests on Gold, Redeemable Money. So Warren Buffett may think that gold is a pet rock, although we do know he bought some Barrick gold last year. but his father understood gold. In the first paragraph here, it says, is there a connection between human freedom and gold redeemable money? First glance, it would seem that money belongs to the world of economics and human freedom to the political sphere. But when you recall that one of the first moves by Lenin, Mussolini, and Hitler was to outlaw individual ownership of gold, you begin to sense that there may be some connection between money, redeemable in gold, and the rare prize known as human liberty. So there you go. Howard Buffett understood sound money, understood gold, understood the connection between sound money and liberty, human freedom. What do you guys think? Do you think we're in an inflationary environment? Do you think the deflationists are still right that we're going to see deflation? In my opinion, I think that's gone. I think we are already seeing significant inflation. Are we going to see the warnings from Professor Richard Werner and Michael Burry that we're going to see hyperinflation? I don't know, but they're much smarter than me, so I would not discount that at all. Anyway, guys, love to see your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, hit that notification bell. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you again on another episode of Finance Uncut.